we did have a couple of little issues with some of the neighbors. They didn't like the idea of somebody building, I guess, a house in the backyard, And so they tried to stop us from doing it. But legally, there was nothing that they could do. We did everything that we could to make sure that we were doing things, appropriately and legally.
Welcome to the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast, the show where you learn how to plan, build, and live the tiny lifestyle. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and this is episode 210 with Adrian and Katherine Alvarez. If you're trying to build a tiny house on a budget, starting with a pre-existing shed can be one of the cheapest ways to do it. My guests, Adrian and Katherine Alvarez, have turned a 16 by 50 Dirksen shed into a tiny home. In this interview, they will share how they bought their $20,000 shed for just $10,000 and then spent very little money converting the rest of the house into a fairly large, for the tiny house world, tiny home for their family of three. Shed conversions are their own special animal, and Adrian shares things that he wished he knew about shed conversions before starting, and so much more. I hope you stick around. I want to tell you about something that I think will be super helpful as you plan, design, and build your tiny house. Tiny House Decisions is the guide that I wish I had when I was building my tiny house. It comes in 3 different packages to help you on your unique tiny house journey. And if you're struggling to just figure out the systems for your tiny house, like how you're going to heat it, how you're going to plumb it, what construction technique are you going to use, like SIPs or stick framing or steel framing, Tiny House Decisions will take you through all these processes systematically and help you come up with a design that works for you. Right now, I'm offering 20% off any package of Tiny House Decisions. For listeners of the show, you can head over to thetinyhouse.net/THD to learn more and use the coupon code TINY at checkout for 20% off any package. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/THD and use the coupon code TINY for 20% off. All right, I am here with Adrian and Katherine Alvarez. Adrian and Katherine have turned a 16 by 50 Dirksen shed into a tiny home. The family of 3 lives in Houston, Texas. Adrian and Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So I guess I'm always fascinated by the shed conversions because, you see them, you see these pre-built structures and, always wonder, like, what does it take to convert one into a house? Does it work?
Right.
And so I guess my first question is just like, why did you choose a shed conversion?
Well, can I answer this, Kat?
Yeah, you can.
So, when we first got married, we had always wanted to have our own home, but it was just really expensive, especially in Houston, that the market is extremely expensive. Even like now in 2022, it's just gone through the roof. But when we first got married, we started renting. And then after a year of renting, we realized like, okay, $12,000 and we don't own anything, and we wanted to have our own little space. And we said, what is the fastest way that we could have our own little space? And so initially we looked at like RVs, and we did the RV thing for a little while. But then we just started having serious conversations. We'd watch these YouTube videos of people getting these shed houses, like these sheds, and turning them into shed houses. Mm-hmm. And we just fell in love with that idea. We were like, this could be something that we could do, And so it really just started from watching YouTube, seeing that other people were doing it and that it is possible, and just having that grow into a real thing,
Yeah, totally. And so take me from kind of the realization that it could be a thing. What were your next steps? How quickly did you make it happen?
Okay, so it's taken a little bit over a year, mm-hmm. and we're still not done. Mm-hmm. Truthfully, honest, I wish we could sit here and say that the house is 100% done. It's not. It's about 90% done. There's still trim that needs to be done, touch up paint and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But how we got started and everything, like I said, it was the YouTube videos really got us motivated. After we saw that it was actually possible, we just sat down and had conversations and said, is this something that we can do? Is this something that, are we both willing to make a lot of sacrifices and, sacrifices and, not going places and doing things with our friends and not buying things that we would like to buy and just saving all of the money that we're able to and try to do this, because we didn't take out a bunch of money in loans. We pulled out, a small loan, and we did this basically, check to check. But basically the way that it started is my father bought a piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
It was about an acre. Is it an acre and a half, Kat? Like an acre and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so he bought this piece of property in Houston. It has no restrictions, no HOA, anything like that. And all of the neighbors have these little apartment buildings, or they turn their garages into apartments and things like that. And my dad said, hey, what if y'all were to build a little house on the property? And we had already been kind of flirting with the idea of a shed conversion into a house.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, okay, this is our opportunity, because that's the other part, is like, you could build the house, but you have to have the land to put it on also, without the restrictions and everything else. And so it just kind of fit perfectly. We didn't have to buy the land. We could build it on my father's property in an area that didn't have restrictions. And so it just seemed like, okay, this is the time for us to do this. And so we had been living in a little camper for probably almost 2 years, I believe, right, Kat?
Actually 4 years, because when we got the RV, Axel was a couple of months when we moved in the RV.
Mm.
So like almost 4 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that for quite a while, and we were like, you know what? There's a lot of families that do it, but it's just not sustainable, like long term,
Mm-hmm.
At least not for us. It just wasn't. We were just kind of outgrowing it. And so we went looking, and we went one day and we just started looking at, we typed in Dirksen and on Google and just try to find these little places that sell these buildings. And we came across this one place, and we sat down and spoke with the lady, and we found out quickly that these buildings are like $20,000 brand new. And so we were like, okay, well, that's gonna cut into the budget. Yeah. And so we're like, okay, which is still way cheaper than a house, but you think that's just $20,000 for a shell.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to be as easy as we thought. And so we kept looking, and then we found a little spot that had the building that we ended up purchasing sitting in the back of the lot with all of the other ones. And so we went to go look at it, and it was a repossession. So somebody had it, they couldn't finish paying it, and then they had to repossess this building. So we were all excited. We ran up to the front, and we're like, hey, we want to talk to you guys about this shed. And the lady said, well, unfortunately, somebody just purchased it. They just bought it. And that one's, it was a bummer. And so we were like, oh man. I said, is there any chance that if it doesn't work out, could you give me a call? She goes, we'll give you a call if it happens, but that's never happened before. Nobody buys one of these things and then says, hey, we don't want it or whatever, right? And so I had given her our phone number, and we had just kind of, put it in the back of our mind, but we really kind of forgot about it, honestly. And maybe 3 weeks to a month went by, and we get a call from the woman at the location, and she said the gentleman who purchased the building, he did not want to cut down a tree to have the building transported into his property, and so he lost out. Do you guys want it? And we picked it up at that opportunity.
Nice.
And so that, like, normally they're like $20,000, and because it was a repossession, it was only like $10,000. So we got it for half the price of that it would normally be.
That's amazing.
And that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
And so give me a sense of like what it is that you got. So it's like a finished shed. So there's exterior siding, the windows are in, the doors are in, but there's no insulation. Yeah. What's the floor like? Tell me about what it was like in its raw form.
So all of this stuff, you could see it like on the YouTube channel, but it's basically, you have, I don't know what they call that exterior plywood that has like the grooves in it, and it's not hardy backer, but it's like, I forget exactly what yes. And so it's basically that painted on the outside with 2x4 studs all the way around it.
Okay. It
has 2 windows, and I believe it had just regular doors, not barn doors, but they normally come with barn doors.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it had been repossessed. So the person who had this shed was actually trying to convert it into a tiny house. And so they had like pieces of plumbing in places. They had bits of floor. They had a little bit of construction that had taken place, but nothing was finished. And so we kind of had to do a little bit of demolition when we first got in, because it was the beginning of the project. Essentially, it wasn't completed. Yeah.
Got it. And how do they deliver it to you?
It was really interesting. They had this huge trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire building sat on this trailer, and then the trailer lifts up from the front, and they put like, basically it looks like a car axle or whatever, but it's like a dolly. As they lift up the front, it starts to slide off the trailer, and then they put the back underneath the wheels. They roll it, and then they have like this little forklift kind of machine that they get underneath the front of it, and then they'll bring it onto the property. It's pretty interesting how they do it. Wow. And those guys are pretty talented, because it was a tight spot. We thought for a second that we weren't going to be able to get it either, but they're pretty impressive how those guys get that building into the spot.
Yeah, that is really impressive. And what did you have to do to the ground, before putting it down?
Right. So, and that's something that I wish we would have done a little bit more of. We did do ground prepping. So one of the first things that we did is we marked out the location of where the building was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a machine that compacted all of the dirt. I wish that we would have poured either, blocks of concrete or something just to give it better stabilization.
Yeah.
And that's something that we may do in the future. But as of right now, it's just compacted dirt with cinder blocks on top of it. And that's probably not the best way to do it, honestly. But in the future, we're going to be going back and probably lifting up part of the house, pouring a piece of concrete, and then trying to reinforce it to make it more stable. Yeah.
Got it. Well, that's all fascinating. So where you live in Houston is, are you like fully legal there in terms of the tiny house, or are you kind of flying under the radar? Like, how does that work with converting a shed to a house?
Yeah. So in the location that we are in, there is no restrictions. There's no HOA or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
The building is 100% registered with the Harris County, is the county that we live in. It is registered with Harris County. We do have permits, because you have to get permits to get electrical and things like that.
Okay.
We did have a couple of little issues with some of the neighbors because they didn't like it, so they tried to stop us from doing this.
Ooh.
They didn't like the idea of somebody building, I guess, a house in the backyard, and so they tried to stop us from doing it. But legally, there was nothing that they could do, and we did everything that we could to make sure that we were not flying underneath the radar, but doing things, appropriately and legally and everything like that.
Yeah.
Because to put all this money and effort into something, and the county come and say, "Hey, you can't do that. We have to take it down," or whatever, that'd be pretty rough. So we tried to do everything the best way possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the less mobile the house is, the more sure you want to be with the legal regulations.
Right. I guess you could probably move this building, but it'd be extremely, extremely difficult to do, and it'd probably tear up everything inside. So
yeah, exactly. It's your house now. So, what did you? So you got the house delivered. You got it all, kind of shored up and reinforced. At that point, what did you start doing next? I'm guessing you like put up walls, put down floors. Like what was the next step?
So me and Kat have we've been married for 5 years, and my father actually had a flooring business when I was a kid, and so he taught me how to do tile flooring, how to do laminate flooring, a little bit of wood working with my uncle and my cousins, and so the flooring, we had a pretty good knowledge of. I also worked on different crews and doing like a little bit of framing, nothing like extremely professional, but I kind of had a good gist of how to do these types of things. Also worked with sheetrock, and I was an electrician for a few years. So I had a lot of like the basic knowledge on how to do this. And the 5 years that me and Katherine have been married, we've always been picking up little odd and end jobs. And she's always been helping me. She's always she's an incredible helper. She's always willing to stick it out and and help me even when it's hot and even when we're hungry and even when we don't really want to do it. She's always there helping. And so yeah, when we started, we did the demo stuff. We first started doing walls. Well, first, actually, I should say is we had to figure out a floor plan, right? We had to figure out how are we going to make this 16 by 50 livable, you know? And so Catherine and I sat down and we got pieces of paper out and we were like, I think we want it like this. And we think we want it like this. And so we kind of drew up a few ideas. And then we sent those pictures, those drawings to my uncle, he's actually a blueprint engineer, which is convenient enough because,
yes,
pretty convenient, right? And he looked at everything and he told us what was possible or what was not possible, you know, and he gave us like professional blueprints.
Nice.
And he said, this is kind of the idea that you guys want. Feel free to change it, but this is what's going to be the most structural way to do it. And so he gave us the best way to do this. And so then we started putting walls up, and I'm watching YouTube videos, how to build a wall, you know, and I had a kind of a general knowledge, but I wanted to make sure that I was doing it right. And so watched a lot of YouTube videos, how to build a wall. Mm-hmm. And then we started putting walls up. Then after we put the walls up, we started doing insulation. After we did the insulation, we started, you know, like double checking, making sure that everything was good. And then after that was good, we started running all the electrical stuff. So we ran all the electrical, the plumbing, and everything that I didn't know. Like I knew a decent amount, but everything that I didn't know, me and Catherine were just like YouTube and Googling just to make sure that, you know, we were doing it right. And there's a lot of mistakes that we've made, but you know, I really do think that if you have enough determination, you'll figure it out, you know, and the internet is a very powerful place to find knowledge and information. So yeah, we just kept working on it little by little. There's a couple of little things that I will say that helped us out with this project.
Okay.
We're like really, really big into like bartering. So like we'll buy something, we'll fix it up, and then we'll trade or we'll sell it, and we'll try to get more money that way. And so we actually ran across one of these little, I think they're called UTVs. It's like a little dune buggy, for like a little 4-seater dune buggy. And I got a great deal on it for like $1,000, and it was a brand new machine. The gentleman had bought it right before COVID, and then he got it for his niece and nephew. They didn't really mess with it, and so he said, "Hey, I want to sell this thing," and he bought it for like $4,000 or $5,000, and we bought it for $1,000. And then I traded that for all of the sheetrock work inside of the shed house. And so it's not the, you know, most conventional way, but it worked out, you know?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Sometimes it's like you turned $1,000 and what do you think it would have cost to hire the sheetrock work out?
I think when he gave us the first quote, he said it was going to be around $3,700 to do the sheetrock work. So we did save definitely on that way.
So everyone got a good deal except the guy who sold you the UTV.
Right. Yeah. Which, I mean, he could afford it. It's fine.
Yeah. So, sounds like it. So what's your total cost all in?
So we paid $10,000 for the building. Mm-hmm. And then in repairs, renovations, and everything that we've gotten, it's around another, I think, $25,000. So we're around like $35,000 or so.
Yeah.
But that's for an 800 square foot home that is ours, you know? So we look at it as a win, because I don't think anywhere in Houston you could find a house for less than $40,000.
$35,000. Yeah, no, and that's, you know, no mortgage.
Right. We have one small loan that we're paying off, and we're almost halfway through with that one. So we're hoping by next year we'll be completely done with it. And we won't have a mortgage anymore. We'll be able to spend that money on experiences and travel and different things. It'd be great.
That's awesome. That's the tiny house lifestyle.
Right. For sure.
I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Tiny House Decisions, my signature guide, and the resource that I wish I had when I was building my tiny house. It starts with the big decisions, which is should you build a tiny house yourself or with help? Is a pre-built shell a good idea? Is a house on wheels better than on the ground, and what works better for you? Deciding on the overall size, deciding on whether you should use custom plans or pre-made plans, different types of trailers, and more. Then in part 2, we get into the systems. So heat, water, showers, hot water, toilets, electrical, refrigeration, ventilation. And we're only 2/3 of the way through the book at this point. From systems, we go into construction decisions, talking about nails versus screws, SIPs versus stick framed versus advanced framing versus metal framing. We talk about how to construct a subfloor, sheathing, roofing materials, insulation, windows, flooring, kitchen. I know I'm just reading off the table of contents, but I just want to give you a sense of how comprehensive Tiny House Decisions is. It's a total of 170 pages. It contains tons of full color drawings, diagrams, and resources. And it really is the guide that I wish I had when I was building my tiny house. Right now, I'm offering 20% off any package of Tiny House Decisions using the coupon code TINY when you head over to thetinyhouse.net/THD. That's THD for Tiny House Decisions. Again, that's coupon code TINY when you check out at thetinyhouse.net/THD. Is there any lessons or things that you wish you knew about shed conversions, in particular that you wish you knew before you started?
There's a lot of things that I wish I would have known before doing this. Well, I guess one of the main things that I wish I would have known is that it's going to take a lot of time. I feel like you look at the size of the building, like, oh, all we have to do is this, 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 and this, and then we have a house. And so you just have it in the front of your mind. Sometimes you get excited about the project and you just want to get it done. But then, a year went by and we were like, wow, we're still not done. We're in it, but we're technically still not done. So I wish I would have really had a realistic time frame, and I mean, not that that's wrong not to have, to be excited about a project, but I think just having a more realistic time frame would have kept me from like disappointment and feeling like we're taking too long,
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things that I would be like, oh, this is taking forever to do this house. It's taking forever. And I would get really bummed out. And then I would feel like, maybe we can't do this. Maybe this isn't going to work out. I'm not sure. I don't know. And then Katherine would always come in and what would you say, Kat? Every time I would talk like that.
We can do it.
We can do it.
I'm always the positive person because in Houston, it gets to 100 degrees. And we have a fan, but it doesn't cool off. So when it gets hot, we're like pouring sweat and we're like, let's call it quits because it's so hot. So that's why it took so long for us to finish because it will get so hot. And then now the cold gets here, it gets so cold. So there's no win-win. So Adrian will be like, I can't do this. I just don't want to do it. I'm like, dude, we have to do it. Yeah. This is our dream. It has been always our dream. We have to focus on this. I'm always the positive person. He's like something so negative, but I try to push him up. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because and it's true. Like we had the heat stroke, because of Houston, just it being Houston, and then we had that Texas winter freeze last year.
Yeah.
And so those two things just really like put everything on hold.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So how long did you think it was going to take, and how long? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's done. I mean, you said it's 90% done, but you're living there,
right?
Right. What was your? Because like when I built my tiny house, I thought it could be done in 3 months, and it took me 13.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what Katherine was thinking it was going to take, but I thought that it might take 6 to 9 months to do. And I don't know. I just, one of the things that actually, you mentioned it before and I just got a total blank, but one of the things that was really hard that I wish I would have known that took a lot longer was getting the permit for the electrical stuff. That took forever. That took months and months and months. And I'm not sure exactly why it took so long. We had all of the proper paperwork, all of the documentation, but the state just moved slow, I guess. I don't know. It took forever. But yeah, I mean, I guess we thought it would take like 6 to 9 months, and it took it took a lot longer than that. We're still not done, but but yeah.
And what about you, Katherine? Any things that you wish that you knew before you got started?
I already knew it was going to take a lot of work. That's I don't like work. I don't like working at the heat. That's the only thing. I get very moody. I don't like working on the heat, but I try to help Adrian as much as I could because I had health issues. So I would get sick and then he would work at the shed house by himself. And I feel bad. But he was like, oh, it's going to take like 9 months. I'm like, in my head, like, nope, it's going to take more than that. And it did. It took forever to finish it.
Yeah.
Well, at least you had that idea. So how long did it end up taking before you felt like you could live there?
Right. It probably took close to 15 months or so.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this was working, I have a full-time job. And so I was working my job and then coming home and almost every single day working on this building. And for the most part, it was me by myself and Katherine helping.
Yeah.
And so there we have, and I don't want to say that we did it all on our own. I mean, if I could, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Anthony and Olivia from Ant and Olive's workshop. They helped us out so much. They have they're another set of YouTubers that actually came and helped us out.
Oh, cool.
Building the countertop. Yeah. And so we got help from them, and it was a huge help. The gentleman, I don't remember his name, but the gentleman that did the sheetrock, willing to do the trade, that was a huge thing. So there's a lot of like things that, that we were helped with. But for the most part, we did, if I had to put a percentage on it, we did probably like, 70% ourselves. And, and, it just took a lot of work. And there was, like I said, there was days that it was really hot and I would go in there and I would do 30 or 45 minutes and be like, okay, that's it. I'm done. It's 110 degrees outside. I can't do anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, we just stuck with it. And we just, like Katherine said, this was it may not be everybody's dream, but this was our dream, was to have our own home. And we just kept that, at the front of our mind. And anytime I felt down about it, she encouraged me. And then when she was feeling down about it, there was times, I'm not going to lie, sometimes that Katherine would say, this is taking forever. And then I'd be like, I know. And so we really did. We encouraged each other a lot. She's way more positive than I am, but we did have to both encourage each other just to keep going, because it can become overwhelming very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And building your own house, whether it's, small, or I'm not going to say that your house is large, but it's bigger than most tiny houses that, my listeners might be thinking about, but
right.
It's all a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's that we get comments sometimes like, your house is not a tiny house. Your house is a small house,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess it just depends on perspective, It's not even 1,000 square feet, and it's in somebody else's backyard. So, I mean, but, I guess to us, it's a lot bigger than the camper. The camper that we were in was 150 square feet. So it is a lot bigger than that.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, anybody that comes over and they hear that we have a shed that we turned into a house, they're always like, they give us this like kind of weird face. Like, why would you do that? Why would you live in a shed in somebody's backyard? And then they come over and they see it and they're like, oh, wow, this is like an apartment. Like, this is like a, and then they get it. You can see the light bulbs kind of click and they're like, oh, okay, right. I understand why you're doing this now. I see.
Yeah. Cause it looks like a house. You might not really know even that it's a shed unless you really knew what to look for.
Right.
And another thing it kind of helped us to save money for our shed house was, we are this couple that likes to go in San Antonio or Austin, or, oh, I want to buy this and I want to buy that. And we kept our minds like, okay, you want that? Let's pretend we're buying it, but how much it costs, put it in our safe. And we're like, oh, we already bought it, but not actually. We put it on the safe so we can save more money to buy the shed house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an interesting way of doing that. It's like, how much would that pair of shoes cost? $100? Do you really need them, or is that a need or a want? Is it a want? If it's a want, then that $100 that you would have spent on those shoes, let's put that towards savings. And so it's like you would have spent that money anyway. You just didn't get the thing that you wanted. And that's a way that you could see, like, how much money first that you would have spent, but in turn you're able to save it by doing that. And that was Katherine's idea, and that was something that helped us out a lot. Was was doing that.
Yeah, that's a great kind of life hack to just don't buy the thing, put the money in your savings account instead. I love that.
It was a little difficult because it's like, I want it so bad. We're like, do you want it or do you want your own house? I'm like, you know what? I want my own house.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And you can probably buy, once you have your own house, then maybe you can buy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of things that I think sometimes people will see something that they feel like they want. They really, really want something. And then, or they feel like they just need it. But if you give a person time, they'll realize, I really don't need that. I just really wanted it. I just really, really wanted that thing, but I really don't need it.
Yeah.
And so it took discipline to do that. And it just, all of the work and everything, all the money that we saved, it really paid off in the end. So
yeah,
if anybody that's trying to do this, just keep your focus, just keep your eyes on the prize, just keep working towards that. Because at the end, if you keep going, you will have it,
Nice. So does the shed have an upstairs? I've seen some shots where there looks like there's some kind of loft or upstairs space.
Yeah. So initially it did when we first got it, when it was a renovation, it did have a loft space. The way that we have it now, it does not have a loft space. It has an attic space now.
Okay.
So the way that the shed is laid out is you walk in, the doors are right in the middle of the shed house. And to your left is the bedroom and bathroom. In the middle is the kitchen and the living room. And then all the way to the right is my son's room and the laundry room. And so above my son's room is the attic, and that's where the air handler, we have a central system. So the AC equipment is above his room in the attic. And then we had, because if you watch any of the YouTube videos, you'll see that the ceilings are really tall. They're like 12 foot to center. And so because of that, we had to put what do they call those industrial, I guess, style AC vents that you see in restaurants and stuff like that. So that way we could have air conditioning inside the home. Yeah.
Oh, those are cool. I like that. I like kind of bringing in some industrial look into a house. I think it creates a really neat vibe.
Yeah. And it wasn't really by choice. It was more by necessity, because actually Catherine initially she didn't like the look of that. She was like, no, I don't want to see the AC vents. But we didn't have attic space throughout the entire house. So that was kind of our only option, or to do floor AC vents. And then we lived in the camper where we had that. And then, with the sweeping and everything it seems like trapped inside those AC vents. So that we just decided against that. But I think it's safe to say that we've actually kind of fallen for them, and we really like the way that it looks now. Everybody that comes over is like, oh wow, that looks so cool. And we're like, oh, it was the only way possible. But everybody seems to like the look of it. And I think that it's kind of won us over also.
Nice. Well, you've been documenting your build on YouTube.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the channel and about what you're doing?
Sure. So when we started doing this, we didn't know that we wanted to record. It was just kind of an idea. And, Catherine said, well, if nothing happens to the channel, and, if nobody watches it, at least we have videos that we can look back on and watch, where it started from to where it is now.
Yeah.
And so we just started putting stuff on YouTube. The channel is called AKA Homeshed, kind of like a spinoff of homesteading, but with a homeshed, right? And so and also AKA is Adrian, Katherine, and Axel. That's our names. So.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. But so we just started recording, and Catherine in the beginning, she didn't want to be on camera. She just wanted to hold the camera and, just videotape. And so I didn't know what to say or what to do, but I just got in front of the camera and started kind of talking about stuff. And I tried to tell little jokes, and, and then we started doing like little skits and stuff like that. And the channel has just continued to grow. It's not a huge channel. It's still very small. We only have 850 or 60 subscribers, but from zero and not knowing anybody, and people liking it. And it's kind of like, wow, okay, well, people are watching this. And so, every week we seem to get more and more subscribers, and we just, just kept documenting. We just kept recording. And one thing that is pretty incredible is we started to develop, like, I guess, people who are really interested in our family and in the project, and that kind of motivated us even more.
Yeah.
Because when we didn't post a video for a while, somebody would comment on our previous video and say, "Hey, where are you guys at? Like, we're ready for the next video." And so that kind of motivated us to keep doing that, to keep posting. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun doing the YouTube thing.
Very cool. Yeah, it's fun when you can find a community and find people who are kind of a fan of what you're doing, and it you motivate them and they motivate you right back.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing that I wasn't really expecting when we started putting these videos up. We put these videos up, and random strangers that we've never met before started watching these videos, and they were like, "Hey, I hope you guys are doing well," and they just saying really nice things. And you have a couple of people who say some negative stuff. I mean, I guess that's the internet, right? Yeah. But for the most part, everybody's really supportive, and everybody's really, really nice. And it's been an awesome experience to be able to put these videos up and to have people who are interested in our family, our life, our house. And we have we have probably around 50 people who continue, like the same people who keep commenting over and over again that we've never met. And they're from all over the place. You have people from Canada, from Brazil, from all over the place, United States, everywhere. And it's really encouraging to see that.
Yeah.
And it keeps us going, So that's pretty awesome.
That's really cool. Are there any YouTube channels that were particularly helpful to you, people that you want to kind of give shout outs to?
Sure. One of the first ones that we watched is they're huge. I'm sure you might have seen them already, but it's Better Together Life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have seen those them before, but they have a building almost the same size as ours. I think theirs is a 16 by 48, which is 2 feet, difference than ours. And they have, I think, like 5 kids. And they're all living inside of this building, and they have lofts, and their house is very nice. They're also, I think, in Texas, but yeah, we watched their videos, and they were one of the channels that motivated us to do this, to try this out, and then we were like, well, they have like 5 kids, and we have 1, so if they can do it with those many kids, then maybe we can just do it with the 1, and that really motivated us to give it a shot. And we're really happy that we did.
Yeah. That's awesome. Katherine, what about you?
I really don't watch that much YouTube. I just follow
Adrian.
Yeah, I just leave it to everything to him. But yeah, we do have 1 child, and it's a lot of work. We do have a puppy too. And I'm technically taking care of 3 kids, because including my husband is almost like a kid too sometimes.
Yep.
But but I'm not a big fan of YouTube. I'm just a normal, calm person that I just watch TV or TikTok.
I beg to differ.
Well, were there any resources or books or movies or anything that kind of inspired you to want to do this?
I barely read. I barely read. I'm a big fan of Princess Diana, so I'm into that, or the Kennedys. But
nice.
Adrian will see videos from the shared house, and he'll send it to me, and I'll watch it. I'm like, we have to do this kind of thing, almost the same thing in our house, but do it differently, so they don't think that we're copying them. But there was a lot of videos that he will show me, and I like some ideas that other people had. So I'm like, we have to do that in our house too.
Nice. All right. Well, Adrian and Katherine Alvarez, thank you so much for being guests on the Tiny House Lifestyle podcast. It was really fun to chat today. Yeah,
thanks for having us. I feel like I was on Joe Rogan. It was great. Thank you so much for the experience.
Oh, come on. Okay. Well, you're welcome. Hopefully it was a good experience for you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much, man.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Adrian and Katherine Alvarez for being guests on the show today. You can find the show notes, including links to their YouTube channel, photos of their shed build, and a complete transcript at thetinyhouse.net/210. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/210. Well, that's all for this week. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast.